Welcome back to the program. So, before the break, Alan, I was asking about the special relationship with the Saudis they enjoy vis-a-vis Israel and other GCC countries, the other 5 countries of the GCC group. The Saudis, they've got a handpicked man back from Washington, D.C., Adil Al-Jubeir. And we've got the new foreign minister in Tel Aviv now. What do we see on the cards in the next, say, 6 months, a year, the relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel, and how they discuss behind the closed doors Iran?
Can I say for background that with the exception of Saudi Arabia's great King Faisal, now he was the only one who was helpful to the Palestinians. He personally fought a political battle with Henry Kissinger and defeated him to get Arafat to the UN to make his gun on olive branch speech, which put the Palestinians on the map. But with that exception, the Arab regimes have actually betrayed the Palestinians. And I'll tell you just in 2 or 3 sentences, one moment that stands out. When Sharon went all the way to Beirut with the invasion of 1982, his objective was to exterminate the PLO leadership and to destroy their infrastructure. Now, before that happened, all the Gulf leaders met in secret. There were no interpreters, there was nobody else there but the leaders, to send a message to President Reagan. And it said, when Sharon makes his move in Lebanon and Beirut, don't worry, we shan't be lifting a finger. Mm-hmm. Now, how do I know that's true? Mm-hmm. Sultan Qaboos of Oman was there, and he told Arafat. And Sultan Qaboos said to Arafat, you're going to ask for our help, and it's not coming. Be careful. Now, I believe Arafat in telling me that story. So they've always betrayed. Now, you've said what goes with Israel and America. I think there is now a quite tight relationship. You could actually say there are 2 entities, Saudi Arabia and Israel, that are both in trouble for their survival, actually. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's what joins them together. But I think it's worse than that. I think the trio is Saudi Arabia, Israel, and Sisi in Egypt. I think that's the triangle. Mm-hmm. And Sisi, in my view, is emerging as probably the worst dictator that the Arab world has seen in modern times. Mm-hmm. So I can only think that they're collaborating on Iran, but they're going to get a bloody nose over Iran, aren't they? Because I think, and you agree, that Obama and the P5+1 are going to do this deal. Mm-hmm. Now, what could make it go wrong? I've been thinking about this. If the deal is done, do not rule out a massive Israeli attack on Hezbollah in the Lebanon, in the hope that it would draw Iran in the hope that gets a big war going and America has to come in. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Don't rule it out. It's a possible scenario.
We, being Muslims, we condemn the Holocaust. We condemn Hitler as a villain of mankind. All Muslims, they hate him. Now, we have the sympathies for all those innocent Jews who died at the hands of Hitler.
But Zion is the best thing that happened for Zionism.
I'm coming to that. Now, Hitler did that. All those who survived within his cabal, they were tried of war crimes by the International Tribunal. Will we live enough to see the Zionists being tried for war crimes and the Saudis tried for war crimes in Yemen? Will we live to see that?
No, because there are 2 sets of rules for the behavior of nations. There's one set for all the nations of the world minus Israel, and that's how it works. And I tell you when this became really formal in what we might call the global power structure. With UN Resolution 242, after the 67 war, that war was a war of Israeli aggression. It was not self-defense. Yeah. So the Security Council...
You mentioned that in this as well.
Yes, in detail in my book. So the Security Council should have said to Israel, You must, as Eisenhower said when they invaded Sinai in 1956, they should have said to Israel, you must get the hell out of the West Bank and the Golan Heights without conditions, and if you build so much as one illegal settlement. But we didn't do that. None of our, I spoke to the British ambassador at the time, and he told me what happened, and he said, the feeling was, look, whatever we tell Israel to do, Israel will tell us to go to hell. Nothing we can do about it. There are two sets of rules. So, no, I don't see them coming up for trial, but the way I see it going wrong, the future, as things are, I would see a final Zionist ethnic cleansing of Palestine, followed at some point by another great turning against the Jews. My shorthand is Holocaust too. Because what we're witnessing in the world today, Jazz, amongst ordinary people, is a rising global tide of anti-Israelism because of Israel's criminal behavior. There is a danger, and I quote a former Israeli director of military intelligence, Huckabee, in my book as warning of this danger, that anti-Israelism could be transformed into anti-Semitism. That is a little bit beginning to happen, only a little bit. So my prediction is a final Zionist ethnic cleansing of Palestine when they realize they can't create some puppet entity to surrender and accept some Bantustan crumbs from Zionism's table. So they resort to a final round of ethnic cleansing. Easy to arrange. You get 6 Mossad agents dressed as Palestinian terrorists and you kill 30 or 40 Israelis. Then you go and you say to the world, look, you must understand why we have to do this. You know, we can write all their bloody scripts. But the world is getting sick and tired of Israel. And were that to happen, I think by time it would trigger anti-Semitism.
So do you feel that it might implode from inside the Zionist elephant, if you can call it?
No, I don't think it will, because to understand Israel, and I learned this when I was doing my secret politics between Arafat and Peres. The first time I chatted with Peres privately before going off to ask Arafat if he wanted to come engage, this is 1980. Peres said to me, I fear it's already too late for a two-state solution. And I said, why? And he said, Begin is not stupid.
This was Shimon Peres?
Yeah.
Okay.
Begin is not stupid. Begin was Prime Minister then. Every day that passes sees new bricks on new settlements. Begin knows exactly what he's doing. He's creating the conditions for a Jewish civil war. Because, said Peres, quote, he knows that no Israeli leader is going down in history as the one who gave the order to the Jewish army to shoot large numbers of Jews to get them out of the West Bank. And Peres paused and he said, I'm not, if I become Prime Minister. So, no, there won't be any collapse from within. As one or two American Jews have written recently, and they're quite right, the only possible chance, there's no change coming from within Israel. The only possible chance is real pressure leveraged from outside. And we come back to what we started saying in this conversation. The only person in the world who can really exercise that pressure is the President of the United States of America. Europe has a lot of pressure it could bring to bear, but unless America takes the lead, Israel isn't going to. So we're back to what I said was the biggest question of the moment. Is President Obama, particularly if he gets the Iran deal going, is he going to turn a new page and start reading the Riot Act to Israel, or is he going to wash his hands and walk away?
Let me repeat, the telephone lines are open, and all the viewers who are watching this program, they can make a telephone call to ask any question or pass any comment on the views expressed by Alan Hart. So we carry on with that. Now, we all agree the Muslim leaders like Sisi, even King Abdullah of Jordan, they are part of the problem which the Palestinians are facing at the moment. Where do you fit in the Turkish political leadership? Are they part of the problem, or they can be part of some sort of solution at the distant level?
No, a few years ago I had some hope for Erdogan. I thought maybe he was coming into but I think he's gone to his head, and I think he's just becoming a maniac. No, the people, it's not leaders that can change things. I said the Palestinians ought to wrap up the PA, but there's another thing they ought to do. It's not only the Arab regimes that have betrayed the Palestinians, it's their own elites. There are so many Palestinian billionaires. There's quite a few of them here in London.
They are. So we thought about the Palestinians are very poor people on the planet.
Look, the Palestinians are by far the intellectual elite of the Arab world, just as I say the Jews are the intellectual elite of the Western world. And I make that point to say, together in peace and partnership, what they could do together. They could change the region, and by doing so give new hope and inspiration to the world. I mean, the prize of there being one single democratic state, with equal rights for all, it's the stuff that real dreams are made of, but it ain't going to happen. But, the real problem is Zionism's success in selling the lies of history about, how this conflict was created and sustained. If the war for truth had been funded, if people like the great Ilan Pappé, you know who he is, people like Alan Hart, yours truly, and others, had been assisted to, get their work promoted and lecture and debate and all that sort of thing, we could have won the war for truth years ago. Zionism could have been defeated. But the Palestinian elite, the wealthy elite, there are several reasons why they don't do it. A lot of them live in the Gulf, and they fear that if they were associated with the anti-Israeli stuff, they'd break their relations with the regimes in whose countries they live. But they've also got their own problems, whether they live here in London or America or whatever. But there used to be a body called the Palestine National Council. You know of that? That was effectively the parliament in exile. And in Arafat's day, it had 300 members from all over the world. It made Palestine policy. Even Arafat was answerable to it. Now, in addition to saying I would like to see the Palestine Authority dissolved and responsibility handed back to Israel, I would like the Palestinians of the world to put their act together and bring back the Palestine National Council with elections to it in every place where there are Palestinians in the world. That would enable the Palestinians to speak to power with one voice.
So do you think the Saudis would let it happen?
The Saudis couldn't stop it. If the Palestinian diaspora of the world took the initiative, nothing could stop it. Okay, they might not be able to have a say they might be able to have elections in Saudi Arabia where there are some Palestinians. But generally speaking, you could bring back the Palestine National Council. So you are suggesting the Palestinians will demographically outnumber the Zionists? Oh, well, no, it's arguable, within 10, 15 years, as things are in Greater Israel, the Palestinians will outnumber. And that's why I say there will be a final Zionist ethnic cleansing. There are two scenarios. Either Zionism, the monster, wakes up one morning and says, oh dear, we're nearly at the point where they're going to outnumber us. So we better be sensible. We better kill them all, chase them all away. Alternatively, you say it's time for one state. One state in which Israeli Jews, those who were Israeli Jews, and Palestinians have equal rights for all. Those are the only two options. So, in the real sense, would that be a possibility in the next 2 to 3 years, 4 years? No. Because it means the end of Zionism. It's the de-Zionization of Palestine. They're never going to accept that, the hardcore Zionists and the mad settlers. And I tell you how deeply rooted this is. When I was doing my shuttle diplomacy between Arafat and Peres, I needed the assistance of Asa Weizmann, who was Israel's defense minister of the time. He was a very good friend. And we wanted him to do something for us. I won't go into that. And I made a date to see Asa at the defense ministry 12:30. I arrived at 12:15, and the place was almost deserted. And the staff said to me, "Look, the minister apologises. He'll be late, but go and wait in the outer office." Half an hour later, I hear these footsteps coming up these stone stairs. And Asa there stands in the doorway, and he looks awful. Perhaps I've told you this story, forgive me if I have. And he looks awful. And he walks over to me, gives me a hug and says shalom, and walks me into his minister's office, puts his feet on the desk like this, and he's looking right past me. And I say to him, "Asa, you've got something on your mind." I thought perhaps there'd been a hijack of a plane or something. I said, shall I go and make an appointment to you tomorrow or whatever? And he said, "No, I tell you why I'm late. This lunchtime, General Sharon convened a meeting, many of our generals, many of our intelligence chiefs, and they've all signed a blood oath that in the event of any Israeli government seeking to withdraw from Judea and Samaria, the occupied West Bank, those who've signed it will take themselves and the troops they command to the West Bank to fight to the death any Israeli government that wants to withdraw." That's real Israeli politics.
So that, I mean, all this scenario is very bleak to me. But do we anticipate an independent Israeli state in some sort of form, limited autonomy, full autonomy, in the next 4 years?
Look, if President Obama and Europe were to use all the leverage they've got to require Israel to get back to 67 borders, maybe that would move a majority of Israelis into saying, okay, we better be sensible. But just as likely, it could be counterproductive. I said earlier, most Israeli Jews have been brainwashed. There's a real danger they could interpret this pressure the way Zionism wants them to and say, you see, there it is, proof that the world hates us, has always hated Jews. Therefore, we must do what is never is necessary to preserve Israel as a refuge of last resort. So it's by no means certain that even if America and Europe were to do the right thing, it brings positive results.
Where do you fit in the veterans like Ehud Barak, Ehud Olmert, the people that
finished, busted flushes.
No political future, no comeback?
No comeback whatsoever. There was a very good article by Ari Shavat, a very good Israeli journalist, writing in Haaretz, saying Israel politically is sick. That was his word. Israel is sick, and it needs a new center. So I mentioned this, and I said, in principle, it's a good idea. Israel needs a new center. But unless that center is constructed on an acknowledgement by Israel's Jews that a terrible wrong was done to the Palestinians by Zion, it will count for nothing. It's worth repeating it, as I said it earlier. There's no hope for peace on any terms the Palestinians and the Arabs can accept unless it begins with Israeli Jews recognizing, acknowledging the wrong done to the Palestinians. And
if you allow me, can I take a telephone call now?
Yeah.
Okay, we have a caller online. Could you please mention your name and you're live on the call and you can speak to Alan?
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum, Ijaz, and salam to your guest as well.
And your name, please?
My name is Azad. I'm speaking from London.
Okay.
Yeah. My question, I don't know whether it would be in your context, because this is, again, we are discussing about the Israel and the Palestinians. Now, at one time, the whole of this area was Greater Syria, and they were broken into so many small countries and everything.
Levant, you're talking about, Levant.
Yeah. Now, how much is West responsible for that? And I can say this is something going to, probably it's going to happen in Iraq, and it's going to happen in Syria as well.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got your question now. We got more callers.
There's another question. I don't know whether you can ask. Another question was, Israel and the Americans are sharing very much the same sort of historical things. They are both occupiers, and they would probably understand and favor each other, because America is occupied somebody's land, and the native of that country is completely, they have no say, completely wiped out.
Thank you, brother. So I think the second point, a second question, which brother asked from London, that's more like a comment. So definitely. But the question he says that Levant was a very prosperous region, and out of Levant, 6-7 countries they were generated, they were created. So to what extent the Western powers, they were responsible for that?
The British Empire was responsible for most of today's problems. The British Empire was about divide and rule so that we could take the resources and raw materials on the cheap and then send them back. If you ask today where violent Islamic fundamentalism comes from, it comes from two prime sources. It comes from Western policy, and in particular its double standards, and it comes from the corruption and the authoritarianism of the Arab and Muslim regimes. But the Western powers, one example of how stupid they were, you remember there was a terrifying war in Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
How was Nigeria formed? The British governor woke up one day, looked at this great map, drew a line round it and said, we'll call that Nigeria. Well, you've got many tribes, but you've got 3 huge tribes in there. I mean, it's just stupid. I would say the caller was right. The British Empire and the British and the West are responsible for shaping most of the problems that have come to haunt us all today.
Thank you very much, Alan. We are going towards the end of our program. Time is running out. And you never know, when you're sitting here for 60 minutes, the time flies really very quickly.
It did.
So we had this program, and just do share your comments and your viewpoint on today's program using the email, and we will appreciate any feedback from your side. So that will help us towards improving this program. And with this, we conclude today's program. We'll see you next Monday around the same time with another topic, but particularly pertaining to the Middle East and, of course, revolving around double standards. So thank you very much indeed. Goodbye.